Well, going into last evening, Fred, there was still a chance. I mean, it was a very, very slim chance. What were the number of events that needed to take place in order for the Red Sox to make the postseason? They had to win every game on the way out.
Yeah, and they had a lot of teams in front of them have to lose the majority of their games. There were 3 teams ahead of them.
Yeah, it was the Mariners had to lose. They had to. It was the Mariners,
Minnesota, and Detroit. All had to lose.
Pretty much lose out or lose, 3 or 4.
Detroit
4 or
had
5.
to lose all of them, and then Minnesota had to go like 1-3, 1-4.
By the way, Detroit's making the playoffs.
Yeah.
They have a 2-game lead in the. I mean, it's pretty much said and done what's happening in the American League now. They have a 2-game lead, and they're playing Chicago starting Friday, the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
So Detroit, who traded Flaherty at the trade deadline, is now in trade. Who had a 2.03 ERA at the time where they traded him. They inexplicably made the playoffs, which bless baseball for having the 7 playoff spots. I mean, that's
go get 'em, Tiger.
Oh, I remember this from my youth in 1920. But you know what happened? Well, you're not going to be able to guess. But when they traded Flaherty, they were able to bench Javi Baez because the highest paid player on their team. They were able to bench Javi Baez because they got a shortstop in return from Flaherty. So it actually worked out for them. And if you play the Tigers in a 3-game series, and Scooble is pitching game 1.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but Hanchy.
Well, it was all for naught for the Red Sox last night. And again, there was hope. They had taken the first 2 games of the set with the Blue Jays in Toronto. And then last night, after the 6-1 loss, Alex Cora talked about missing the playoffs. Now, there's a lot here, so we can stop it. But there are a couple of things that we need to address.
I'm not happy, but it's very quiet. It's very quiet, which is good, Like I've been saying all along, this is, nobody had outside the walls here. Nobody expected us to play all the way till now, meaningful games,
You know what he should have done with those walls? Put his balls on them and gone balls to the walls.
This is how we need to play the way out, boys. These on this. Ew.
Balls to the wall.
Does he have his testicles out? Is he putting them on the wall? I can't see.
That's true. You wouldn't be able to.
Ooh, I hope so.
Meaningful games.
Yeah.
Meaningful. Okay. Were they truly meaningful games?
Not for the last 5 weeks.
No. So, okay, but I understand he's still trying to talk the talk. What else you got, Alex?
Our goal was to make it to the playoffs. It didn't happen, but it's a good learning experience for those kids over there. Obviously, it's going to be a different group next year, but for them to think that they were almost there, at one point, it felt like we were a playoff caliber team, and then it just, we missed the opportunity.
You know, I had a similar experience to those White Sox. They had a good 2 weeks where they thought that they could make the playoffs, and then the calendar turned to April.
The learning experience, I guess, is don't suck for the entire second half of the season.
Yeah, they were very bad the second half of the season. If they just would have maintained some mediocrity,
right,
they would have been in the playoffs because, again, I don't mean to keep harping on Detroit because I'm from there. I'm not a huge Tiger fan. But the Detroit Tigers are not any better than the Red Sox on the paper. Again, in fact, their lineup's worse, I would contend. They're using openers and stuff. They're using Hinch is doing a bunch of crazy stuff over there. Kansas City fell apart. Minnesota fell apart.
And for Alex Cora, talk about a learning experience. If you're going to be honest and you're going to assess this properly, you have to stop saying things like, "Oh, we played good baseball tonight and it was a good game. We just lost," because the other cliche, which I happen to believe in, is those are the games that good teams win. The close games, the extra innings games, those are the games that Not a championship team necessarily, but good teams. And there will be 4, 6 good teams left here in the postseason. And the Red Sox weren't one of them. Going into the All-Star break, sure, best team in baseball or hottest team in baseball for the 4 or 5 weeks leading into it, yes. But after that, when you disintegrate and you fall apart and you don't win all these games where you continually insist that you're playing well, you're not playing well. You got to win some of those games, and they lost so many after the All-Star break and down the stretch here to where I don't know what the learning experience is unless you take a big picture approach and say, guys, you suck for half the year, you're not going to make the postseason.
This is all crap. The problem is the bar has been lowered by the way that the ownership is running this team. And you look at that roster, and Fred, you were just talking about it. You look at that roster and you go, okay, other than Rafael Devers, where's the major talent? You looked at the rotation at the beginning of the season. Who's the ace? Who's the major talent? Now, they lucked out. Tanner Houck had an all-star first half of the season, and Devers was Devers until his shoulder problems got too much for him. But, you got amazing years from Jarren Duran out of nowhere. Tyler O'Neill, if you take a look at his season last year and compare it to this year, it's night and day. And the Red Sox didn't expect either of those two guys to explode like this. They got lucky. But it's a major market team that has a bad roster, a mediocre roster, that lucked out. That's the problem. That's what enables Alex Cora to say, you know what? We fought hard. We were in there. It's a learning experience. It shouldn't be a learning experience. This roster should be better than this. And ownership knows it.
Yeah, the roster should be better, but John, they should have. They're not. What's their payroll compared to Kansas City, Minnesota, Seattle, and Detroit?
It is more than that. It's more than all of those teams.
But what I'm saying is that it's a disappointment in that there was no reason, based on how the AL went this year, that they shouldn't have made the playoffs.
Fine. But we're talking about this team like, oh, you know what? Those plucky underdogs. Look how close they came. You know what? It shouldn't be like that. This is 3 straight years without a playoff berth. Now, while in Kansas City and Detroit and Minnesota, that might be fine, it's not supposed to be fine here. The expectations are higher, and they should be.
Well, next year, here come the kids.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't call any of them up.
Yeah. Well, as I told you, the catcher Teal had a lot of trouble hitting AAA pitching, so there was no, until the last few games of the year. I think he wound up at like 230, but when we talked, he was hitting like 150.
Well, I have a lot of trouble pulling off Teal in my wardrobe.
Sorry, I didn't expect the zinger so early.
I wanted to wait until you were able to get to it.
No,
So that's the thing with the Red Sox. We're treating them like they're, you know what? Just let's give it time. Let's let the kids mature. Okay, great. But don't sit there and pretend like, you didn't have more resources available to you.
Well, next year, based on if they bring all those kids up, I mean, it's not like they're going to start lightning in a bottle.
That's the thing. If we continue on this current path and we let the kids play, it's not going to happen next year either. They'll be a little bit better next year. Watch now, everyone's ready to hit the ground running, and then maybe in 2 or 3 years from now, there'll be the power that that ownership sees. But
by the way, I said 7 teams in the playoffs. I meant 6. I got it mixed up with the NFL. What was the deal with Baltimore? Was it just all their young kids came out and showed right away, or was it like a mixture? I'm not overly familiar. It's a mixture, right?
It is a mixture. Don't forget they got Corbin Burns this year.
Yeah, that's right.
That's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that Rutschman was an overall number 1 pick. He exploded. Gunnar Henderson was a high draft pick, and he exploded. I mean, they got Baltimore was bad for a lot of years.
But Mullins is not a.
Mullins has been an all-star in the past.
Yeah.
And he struggled at the beginning of the year, but now he's hitting.
Yeah, okay. So it's not like just like all. Yeah, okay. I'm looking at their lineup. Yeah, it's not just all young kids. They just it's a mixture of veterans.
Santander's been there a while. He hit over 40 homers this year.
Okay. So yeah. If their plan is just to bring. So what is it? It's the veterans are Duran, Story, Casas, Devers.
No, Not even. No, I wouldn't put Casas in there. He's a kid.
Okay.
He's in his early 20s.
But he has major league experience.
Yes, he does. He has major league experience, even though he missed most of this year. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Very good. But fair enough. We'll call him a kid. That's fine with me. I mean, if they bring the kids up, it's just not like they're gonna. You get in the playoffs, anything can happen, but it's not going to be this, victory lap Celtics-like season. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The plan is the same. You bring up these kids and try and sign them to very team-friendly contracts for the long term.
But in that division's not easy. I mean, you have Baltimore and the Yankees aren't getting worse, especially if Soto goes back to the Yankees.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Red Sox analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.